New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Dr. Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here, as it is every episode. I'm so happy every time I know it's time for Growing Edge Live. I get really excited because I know that I'm going to be having a conversation with a soul-centered individual that is channeling their time, their talent, their energy, resources, their creativity into doing good works in the world. And that's what we do here every week. We have conversations and we go deep and we talk about what's working. And so today, my guest is my beloved husband, Michael Benjamin. And Michael, he's been on the show before, so welcome back by popular demand. Hello, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it's really good to come together as a couple and share some of our insights and stories, knowing that what we have to share might be super helpful for people dealing with some of the uncertainty that we're all facing during these times. And so before we get to all of that, I'd love people to get to know you a little bit. I know that you currently are a project consultant within the business. You're an entrepreneur. You also have been a hospice chaplain. You started out, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, 20 plus years ago, studying metaphysics and New Thought, and became a practitioner, a mental science practitioner, and went on to get your master's degree in consciousness studies. So having said all of that, people get an idea of who you are and what your area of interest is, supporting others and bringing New Thought principles into not only your work, but into the lives of your customers. But before all of this, who was Michael before he became a religious science or science of mind practitioner? Before he started on that track, who were you?
Well, thanks. Before I started to have my conscious awakening, I would say I was, spiritually inquisitive as a young person. Born and raised in traditional religiosity, kind of felt like a little bit of an outcast, even being told that by my loved ones, intended as they were. But I used to hear things like, you ask too many questions, or kids are to be seen, not heard, and you seem to be asking a lot of questions and so forth. But by and large, ego-based family, patriarchal, very driven. If it's up to me, it will be, that type of upbringing. And, but definitely frustrated, lost, going down many paths, experienced quite a bit of, I'll call it adversity, things not working out according to my egoic plan. And ultimately, all of that led up to me asking, some pretty moving questions. And the question I asked is, what is this life all about, and who am I? And began to source some ideas, not necessarily by asking everybody else around me, but few people. My mother, who was a mental science practitioner as well, and she was well on her journey, and she said, well, come with me, there's somebody I want you to hear. And I began to explore, the inner verse, at that point. And that was 29 years ago. And so 29 years ago, I began to seek inwardly, from a place of having an idea that I am whole, that I was born of a divine birthright to receive, that I am continuously connected, contrary to my religious, the religiosity upbringing, where sort of the spirit left thyself, and I had to go to an intermediary in order to get to somebody who could pray powerfully. But the journey of self-discovery and self-exploration began out of a desire to experience peace, and to experience that prosperity and the wholeness and all the things that come when we realize who and what we really are.
So who are you?
Well, I'm a spiritual being, right? So I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, having a human projection into this time-space continuum. I am not my body, I'm that which has a body. I'm not my mind, I'm that which has a mind. And so knowing that, and realizing the divine and ultimate reality that it already has everything that is required. Like, I literally was born, I and you and everybody else, we were literally born into this body from the source of all existence, that which has everything that is required to move into the next iteration, into the next greatest yet to be.
So we're individual. I think what I'm hearing you say is that we're all individualized expressions of this one life, and that once we sort of surrender to this greater identity, not just the small self, this physical body with a local mind and sets of ideas and beliefs and goals, but there's a bigger life that we're a part of. Is that what you're getting at here?
Absolutely. And the universe, the infinite, we've heard it stated being one song, right? That it's playing out in multiplicity always and in all ways, that it's giving to itself existence, and that it's living itself into a fuller expression as not only me and you, but the trees and the birds and the fish and the pollen and the bumblebees and the fish, and everything that is in existence is here and divinely appointed for a reason. We know this. And whether I'm speaking to somebody who's from a traditional, say, a Judeo-Christian based organization, or somebody who's in New Thought or Buddhist or Hindu, we all agree on this. It seems to be the unifying agreement that we live in, have our being in this one divine light, this essence. But once I began to really give myself permission to sort of reprogram into a new way of living, then I began to give myself permission to source ideas, not from every person around me, but rather contemplation, through meditation, through communing with that divine mind, knowing that it is communicating to me. And, once I'm available and make myself available, then I begin to catch divine ideas that allow me to further move down the path consistent with my vision. So you inquired or asked earlier, how did you find yourself as a hospice chaplain? And
Well,
you know,
hold on.
I
I
would
want to go
answer.
back a minute. So
Okay.
when you were struggling or became curious and wanted to deepen your sense of understanding about this thing called life and this thing called you, and you said that your mother had taken you to hear someone speak, and so I'm imagining that you started to inquire and study and through the people that she presented to you. So when you were back at that moment, when you were first introduced to these principles, to this idea of oneness, this idea that there's a greater mind or a greater intelligence that you can use, how did that impact you? How old were you, and how did that first settle in, and how did it make a difference for you?
Well, I was 24 years old, and I was a bit nervous about it, actually, thinking that I could actually sit in first position and commune with or communicate with the divine presence. Um, or, coming from the upbringing that I came from, I was actually trained, if you will, to sort of beseech to the outermost patriarchal dominant male figure, that that ineffable man that's sitting on a cloud somewhere that nobody's ever seen, and to actually sort of begin to explore the inner verse, knowing that I am connected to it always, that right where I am it is, was a bit unsettling to begin with, to be honest. It took a little while before I gave myself permission to dive in wholeheartedly, to begin to live sort of unwavering with it, knowing this presence is always on. It was said that ignorance excuses no man. And, once you know better, you have to do better. These sort of call to a higher level of service, to not only myself. I mean, I think it was Michael Beckwith many years ago that in one of his teachings was talking about, we need to we got to be able to pay the light bill. Like, a life of service doesn't mean a life of poverty, living impoverished, right? It meant to actually demonstrate principles of prosperity and abundance and being able to rise. I mean, you were there with me. You knew how difficult it was for me to start to write, significant tithing checks, coming from that place of having not only my heart wide open, to receive, but also to give, receive, all in one sort of thing. Like it was tough for me to it took a while for me to really begin to outpour and to receive and give all at the same time, knowing that I am in a constancy of communion.
So what I'm sensing is you went from your upbringing where it was more about the traditional type of praying or communing with God as an outside entity or deity, to this sort of switch of, now I'm communing right here where I am, and I'm actually tuning in to higher wisdom or insights based on what I'm feeling deep inside, and that connection to God or source energy that isn't so much an outside thing, but an inner feeling and an inner closeness. Is that what you're
Yeah,
trying to explain?
absolutely. And actually, fast forward a couple decades, we begin to have a realization that we don't get to have the luxury to turn it off, that it's always on, and that we are always living and moving and having our beingness, which is continuously evolving on this earth dance, um, and that we don't get to actually turn it off. And so, it's kind of like um, a high stakes game.
Yeah. So one of our teachers, Dr. Ernest Holmes, coined the phrase "change your thinking and change your life." And so I'm sensing that a lot of what the subtle shifts and changes that were occurring was the realization that you're responsible for what you're creating, that your thoughts are somehow tied in to your experience. And so the sort of the spotlight is turned around and shines on ourselves and calls us to right our thinking, and bring our thinking into the affirmative, and bring our thinking into alignment with the fundamental order of the universe, or the creative flow, or it's a way of attuning ourselves to
Yeah.
that God essence, or that life force energy. And so what happens to all those sort of old beliefs or the negative thinking? Because I'm imagining that this was a potent time for you to start really having mastery over your own mind, your thoughts, your beliefs. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yes. So it's absolutely, when I say it's not optional, I mean, this is the realization that I've had. Like, we are, we are continuously communing with the divine mind, the spiritual presence, the essence that is always moving forward. It's literally bursting into time at the speed of light, and it's unlimited and unleashed in its potential. Um, so knowing this, yeah, once I gave myself permission to sort of learn a new way of praying or thinking in firsthand, like, even just when you brought the term affirmations, like, a lot of people use it in performance, professionals, athletes, songwriters, artists. People use it even if they're not consciously aware of their spiritual and divine connection real time. But when we become aware that there's a real time um, living livingness, if you will, a being that's coming into presence through me as me, and it's continuously responding, and what shows up on my plate as my life in the third dimension has everything to do with the sum total of where I am today. That's actually a very empowering realization to have, because I don't always like it. I mean, I don't want to mislead those that are listening to think that, hey, it's I'm 100% on always. No, there's times that I've created, I created a $40 million company that failed. We had a tremendous ride for a decade with my partners and I. We did a lot of good dealings and so on and so forth. But in the end, it didn't work according to our egoic business plan that we had mapped out. Having said that, boy, was there a lot learned. There was a lot of freedom gained from having that experience. There was a tremendous amount of momentum, right? And so knowing that I have the opportunity to um, revisit and begin to reprogram, if you will, the subconscious. Because ultimately, as I'll use the term advanced practitioners, we know that we're using the local mind, that which we have dominion over, to kind of think things over and over and over. But this gets impressed into the broader mind, the deeper mind, the God mind, if you will, the subconscious mind. Ultimately, we each have the opportunity to reprogram the subconscious. And in so doing, the spiritual law of creation must carry that out. And we will begin to see things show up differently. So, this is what Ernest Holmes meant when he talked about changing your thinking and change your life. I think he meant change the outcome of the affairs, both on a physical level, a health, a personal physique, medical conditions, so on and so forth, but also our financial affairs and our business dealings and the conversations that we have during what I call pay time hours.
Beautiful. So it sounds like you mentioned the law, and in New Thought, we talk about the law of attraction, the law of right action, the law of reciprocity. The law is always responding to our thoughts, to our beliefs. And it sounds like in this awakening, if you will, as you were becoming more aware of your spiritual self and your local self, your ego and your essence, let's say, that you had a greater understanding of how the laws work, and that reprogramming or the reconditioning that was happening through the contrast of your past and then spiritual teachers and study and all of these things that supported you in along the way and understanding a bit more of how things work here on planet Earth and how things get to be the way they are. It sounds like that is comforting, to actually know that the universe is a safe and friendly place, that it's more than just us in this vast unknown, but there's sort of a fundamental order to things. There's laws that support us. And I always use the image of a circle with a line across the middle. And I think of above the line and below the line. And what I'm hearing you say, talking about, is that you had greater awareness of where you were below the line or above the line with the thoughts and the beliefs that were going on, your responses to things, your reactions to life. They started to move more above the line, more towards the affirmative, the assertive, the focusing your actions, your thoughts, your words into the visions and the dreams and the goals and the things that you wished to experience. So you gained a particular mastery over this, and you became a spiritual practitioner or a science of mind practitioner. How did that impact? Because I know that on this journey of self-discovery, we do a lot of, it does a lot of benefit in our own lives, but there reaches a point for many of us where we actually want to take a step in the direction of helping others, of channeling our own energy in service of supporting others to become empowered or take responsibility for their lives. How did things change for you when you became a practitioner?
Well, I think it was practitioner training that changed everything. I mean, that was like a multi-year wire brushing, right? Where, where you get called into the upper room, and you not only have people that I'm working with, other students that I worked with, my prayer partners and so forth, but my mentor, my teachers. And, it's kind of like going to the gym. If you want to be physically fit, you don't just go once and have this big aha moment and then, everything transforms. You kind of have to be congruent with the end game, the desire point. And it takes repetition, it takes consistency. And how it changed for me was, I believe I coined the phrase, what am I affirming now? And the reason being, like, affirmations don't always have to be spoken, because thoughts are words that are unspoken, right? So the paying particular attention to my thoughts, that which is what I'll label as the dominant thoughts, those that I'm having more often than not, those are what seems to be showing up in my world. And once I proved that to myself, then I began to really, so this is the practitioner training, then I really began to live it as a way of life. So as a practitioner, yes, I do sit with people, and yes, I do serve as a spiritual care chaplain. The chaplain heart was open, seemingly, in 2018, I believe, so 6-7 years ago. That I don't think ever ends. I sit with people all the time that are in trauma and grief, and where life is thrusting upon them change that they weren't consciously seeing. And this affords me the opportunity to live in that kind of that hormonal state, knowing that I'm always in the right place at the right time, and that which is showing up on my plate, if you will, or that which is showing up is my opportunity. We have, as you know, lived through some tremendous life-altering experiences, and yet at the same time, we both do have a realization that life is for you, and that if that's true, then even though we may not really love what we're experiencing, we give ourselves permission to dive deeper and immerse into it with the inquiry mind. What is this that is for me, or what is in this that is for me? Because there's something here. And I think the heart-wrenching loss that we've experienced, or the life-altering illness that we've experienced with our loved ones, that has forever changed our family, that has forever changed our way of being on planet Earth, has really just been a gift. I mean, it's been a gift not only for me to sit with somebody. I'll give you an example, and I know we're getting ready to go to break in a second, but even just the other day, I showed up on a call where I thought I was there to talk about a project, but here what turned out to be my patient, and I use that term loose, but it turned out to be a patient. She was laying on the ground with her her dog, 15-year-old dog that was leaving and transitioning. And she was in tears, and she was in complete trauma. And so immediately I stepped into that and was able to sit with her in tears and crying, loving the animal, calling her family, getting the support there, handing off, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure that not everybody would have done that. Like, I'm pretty sure some people would be like, see you later, down the road. But no, that's not my calling, right? So my calling is to be able to sit in the fire, whatever that is.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to hear more about sitting in the fire right after this break. See you in a few minutes.
See you in a minute.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity, Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, thesatyacenter, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
People of African Descent New Thought Group proudly presents Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village, Thursday, August 1st through Sunday, August 4th. Some of our greatest keynote speakers, some of our finest musicians and vocalists, some of our amazing and experienced panelists, and some of our fabulous masterclass presenters will be there for you at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village this summer. Regular registration ends June 30th, so don't delay. Register today at padntg.com. Sponsorship opportunities are available at padntg.com. Volunteer opportunities are available at padntg.com. Go there now, padntg.com. See you there.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back, Michael and I, and I'd love to sort of shift a little bit and have a conversation about today, about these current times. We're experiencing on this planet a lot of uncertainty. It seems like it's always this way, really, but because of the news and because of social media, we're really, if we're tuned in to those platforms, we sort of pick up on what's going on around the world. And it seems like with the wars that are going on, with the economic situations that are, going on around the globe, health challenges, health crises, climate change, there's so many things that could cause us to feel uncertain or unsafe. And I'm wondering how maybe we can share some insights to help people navigate these uncertain times, because it's happening for all of us. And you mentioned us as a family having gone through some significant losses and challenges. And both you and I are coaches and do spiritual counseling. So we see a lot of people come to us to talk about what's happening in their lives and how uncertain they feel, how unsafe they feel. And they look to us to share some ideas, some principles, to pray with them, to meditate. And so I want to address that. How do we find peace and comfort when things around us are falling apart, when things aren't going our way? I know in our family, someone's had a diagnosis of something that's really life-changing, and that can have a ripple out effect in a family. So what happens to one of us within a family affects all of us. And that's also happening on the big scale globally. what happens to one country trickles out, ripples out, and affects other countries. And so with this, knowing this, that we live in this up and down world where things come in and out of focus, when there's challenges one day and everything's easy the next, how do we maintain our equilibrium? How do we stay centered in the midst of fear and uncertainty? And so what are some of your thoughts as you're out there in the world? You've talked about being a project consultant, helping people with their home situations and home improvements and things like that, and also working with individuals that, as a hospice chaplain, you were supporting families that are definitely navigating some choppy waters with the loss of their loved one coming up. How do you, what is it that we can hold on to? What's sort of some spiritual insights or some practices that can keep us centered in times of turmoil, in times of transition, and times of change? That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, as far as the world of affairs, right? It's so double-edged sword in some degree, right? We have to find the prayer request, if you will, in what mainstream media or legacy media, if you will, is continuously broadcasting 24 hours a day. But we have to know that energy grows where our attention flows, that we literally have the opportunity to tune in to the innermost on high, right where we sit, in the awareness. I think it was Greg Braden that talks a lot about in quantum physics when we talk about how, coming from wholeness, realizing wholeness, which is your Thursday night conversation that you have, is what is ours to do, right? No person, place, or condition is our source or our supply. It's easy to get sucked off kilter and to get sucked into the external world of effect, what's going on, and XYZ, pick it, right? Or what so-and-so said, or what so-and-so said. We can easily lose ourself in what other people are doing and saying. But what I would invite you to feel is, how does that feel for you when you allow yourself that tryst of going down that road for whatever period of time it is? And I think more often than not, we would begin to agree that we feel out of control, we feel chaos, we feel, lost in this big world, we feel fearful, we feel all of these ways when we allow ourselves that. But we also have the opportunity to tune into that inner verse, that which is living itself into experience through us, as us, and it is our source and our supply, and it knows how to do it. So I think really to listen to what's going on in others and sort of deduce it down to what is the prayer request here? What is the desire point? And then I move into that place as fast as possible. Because
so if you hear some negative news or someone in your life complaining or being anxious about what's happening in the world, your practitioner ear is attuned to what's the prayer request here. What can I know? What can I hold the high watch for in this situation? And so I'm thinking that when we can generate that that awareness to not get carried away with the fear or the uncertainty, but to stay centered in self. I think of the Ernest Holmes quote, there is one life. This life is God's life. This life is perfect. This life is my life now. For me, that's my go-to when things start to go crazy, or I can, you and I were vacationing this weekend, and there was a terrible accident, and a lot of people were talking about it. There were some fatalities, and I can be quick to go into that place of just feeling so sad. I'm very empathic, as many of us are, and we can start to really be clouded in our energy, in our thinking, when we sort of go down that road. And it's not that we have to deny that there's catastrophes or there's fatalities or someone's struggling, but it's to be able to hold it both. Yes, this actually happened, and I'll remember who I truly am, that there is only one life. This life is God's life. This life is perfect. This life is my life now. And when I utter those words, when I come back into alignment with who I truly am, beyond this physical body and this mind, this ego, and start to blend more with the entirety of what's occurring, then there can be space without it taking me down as an individual or to a place of depression or sadness or hopelessness. There can be this staying centered, being mindful about what's occurring. And even in the face of loss and struggle and strife, there can be that also, that's a both and. There can be this sense of, I am who I am. I'm a part of this amazing one life, that there is a particular divine right order to things. I may not understand it in my human mind, but in my spiritual sense of self, I can get a feeling that there is right order here. Through the law of cause and effect, accidents happen, and there is divine right timing. Things unfold in a particular timing. It may not be my timing, but if I take the 3,000-foot view on it, there's a particular right timing to things, and there's also right action. And we can always be called to that right action. And I think that happens when we're in this place of allowing the uncertainty to be, allowing the pain or the whatever's happening that we don't want to happen, the traumas that are happening around us. And we maintain that sort of witnessing presence of, I am this higher sense of self that can make space for everything to happen. And so I think for me anyway, when I can maintain that sort of sovereignty, that place of being grounded, even in the difficult, even in the uncertain times, being aware of who I really am as a spiritual being, having a human experience, then I can maintain this sort of energy or vibration of peace and love and calm, and bring that wherever I am. And in that way, if enough of us could do this, maintain this sense of right timing, right order, right action, in the midst of the uncertainty, in the midst of things falling apart, we can hold that high watch, keep that frequency of what's possible, because there's always the next thing, the next phase. And as we know, as people that have been through challenges, this too shall pass. And that phrase can be very difficult, and us as practitioners don't necessarily say that to someone that's struggling with something very challenging. But we know in the back of our mind, in the silence of our hearts, that this too shall pass. And if we can maintain that sense of higher self or essential self, fundamental self, that is part of this creative process, that is a cooperative part of it, then I think we can be of help, of earthly good. But if we spiral into being frantic or being fearful or just being, lost in the storm of all of this, then maybe we're not the cooperative component to a path forward, to greater healing, to deeper realization. And so I think for me, these teachings have taught me to understand the power of my mind, to bring myself back to center in the face of the storm or in face of a crisis or uncertainty, and respond or react and respond in a way that reflects who I really am as a spiritual being, not who I am as a scared, person that's having, bought into the energy of fear and scarcity. So thinking, the power of our thought is huge. You talked a little bit about the power of affirmations to keep our mind, keep up that the thoughts are just words without sound. I loved it when you said, what am I affirming right now? And I think that's a really good thing to think about if we are spiraling, if we are getting sucked into the fear or the division, the inequality that we might be experiencing in the world at the moment. If we can bring ourselves back to that place and know that the thoughts that we think, and we can create affirmations to help us stay on course. And I know that's something that you and I have practiced throughout the course of our lives. We do it every morning. We have a series of affirmations that bring us right back to center. So maybe you could share a little bit about how you bring yourself back to center in the face of uncertainty, using affirmations, knowing that you're always having an opportunity to respond with grace rather than react from fear.
Yeah, there's so many thoughts that I just had based on the experiences that I've lived through, kind of in this churning human experience, right? This constancy of evolution, having experienced loss and being a part of other people's loss. One person, at one level, right? I'm with a patient who's ascending and leaving, and other people in the room are losing somebody at that moment, the physical actually, but the person that is leaving or ascending is actually gaining freedom. So there's like this one door's closing and another door's opening type of experience going on there. The human journey and the belief that we're going to experience this thing without chinks in the armor, I think is just an egoic preference that everything's always going to be ideal, or what we label as ideal. Having said that, some of the most heart-wrenching, biggest dents in the armor, so to speak, have been my biggest gifts, once I get through it or get beyond it. So the belief of it always being like this soft, fluffy cotton ball sort of experience where I'm just floating through this thing and it's always going to be, easy, to the ego mind is just an egoic thought, to be honest. So this ever evolving and ever expanding experience is definitely moving forward because of the struggle. So when we talk about the current events of loss or change, or you talk about the economy, look, the spiritual and overwhelming reality is we're in a growing universe. We're in a growing state of being. This, um, 8 billion people or 7.97 billion or whatever the number is growing. It's not shrinking. There's more and more and more and more and never less. And so we can argue with that, but we're going to lose 100% of the time. So to those that are feeling like their way of life is changed, I would say open up your heart and really embrace that change and go with the flow, because one door closes, another door opens. The faster you can see that opening, the kind of the less struggle you will experience with that change that's taking place. I know that we've been participating in prayer circles for the last couple decades, and there have been a lot of people screaming out for change, like in all ways. And what we're experiencing today is, in fact, change. Change is occurring. Now, when we come from the wholeness viewpoint and we're realizing wholeness, then we begin to find things that we can be thankful for, and that we can live in the gratitude of the ever changing and ever expanding good that is coming into time. Try not to label it as good or bad. I know that we in humans do tend to want to label things. I don't today when it comes to the isness of what is showing up. It's not always easy. It's not always easy because, it's sometimes easier to label things as not good or what have you. But boy, I can tell you that just allowing it to flow, knowing that the divine unfoldment is always perfect. It knows exactly what is required to turn the page to the next step. And when I allow that to be, I have an easier experience with whatever that is.
Yeah, it seems like the challenges that arise that in our lives give us the opportunity to rise, and we become more flexible, more adaptable, and it builds resilience within us. And I think that's what happens in this life experience as we go through the ups and downs. It helps us to sort of hone our skills and realize the importance of maintaining hope and trusting that we have whatever we need within us, that if we can surrender, not give up, but surrender to this great life, this divine source energy that is really what all of us are. As we sort of surrender into that, then I think what happens is we have greater access mentally. We have greater access to omniscience, the divine mind. When we surrender, we have greater connection to the omnipotence, the power of love. And when we surrender, we also have greater connection to the omnipresence. We're more peaceful with things as they are. And this, I think, for anyone that is fancying themselves as a spiritual counselor, a practitioner, this is a great thing to realize. When we have the consciousness of our ability to maintain the journey, to stay the course, to keep moving forward, knowing that our entire life, you call it the wire brushing, that our entire life with all of its challenges have given us great resources, access to great resources of hope, of curiosity, of beauty, of creativity, that we can harness this energy. We can hold the high watch, stay hopeful, harness these amazing skills and talents that we have, those of us that have been on the personal development, the spiritual path for some time, just having the consciousness of all of that, and then bringing that to our family, bringing that to our workplace. We bring this ease and flow to us without even really having to say anything. There's this invisible exchange of energy that happens after time, once we're on this path, and once we've gained knowledge and wisdom about these practices, these principles, then we truly are a benefit to the world as a whole, and to ourselves, and to our loved ones. And so what would you say? We're coming right up to the end of the show now, and I'd love you to share a little bit about your hope and wish for the world at the moment. We all know the world needs love, sweet love. What else?
Yeah, I think it comes down to really realizing that the cup is not only, there's the half full, half empty sort of, I would liken it to overflowing. The cup of life is absolutely overflowing. It is literally overflowing at the speed of light. And that when we realize that wholeness in the now moment, I mean, that's really my prayer, is for everybody to realize their wholeness in this now moment. And if we do, then we will give other people permission to do the same. And I also would just add that you and I are getting ready to embark on a journey, that we're going to be traveling throughout Europe, and we're going to be going to England and Guernsey and Madeira, and we will definitely be doing lives, possibly this show from there. And so stay tuned and join us, because this message of not only prosperity, the realization of financial and monetary, but the realization of wholeness is really what we do. And so join us as we continue to move forward, and don't, keep yourself in check in terms of balance, right? With how much time are you investing in the external news and the old news that's being rebroadcast over and over and over, as opposed to how much time are you sitting with creating your news and realizing your wholeness in the now moment.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you again next week. Peace and blessings to you wherever you are. Know that we have practitioners here at Satya that can support you on your spiritual path, whatever you're going through. So know that you're not alone, that you're loved, that you're amazing, and I'll see you next week. Mwah. Bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.